Hi, so today I'm going to teach you what a vinyasa is. So you may have been in a yoga class before and the teacher may have said to you, take your vinyasa. Or you may have just come across looking at classes on a schedule and seeing the word vinyasa class and you've wondered what that is. So vinyasa is a style of yoga, and during that yoga class you'll often take a little sequence of a couple of poses. It's usually during an overall yoga flow or yoga sequence. So I'm not going to talk too much about it, hopefully we'll just do it and it'll make more sense to you once you've practiced it a couple of times. There are about two variations of vinyasa. One is more of a beginner or a warm-up vinyasa and the other one's a little bit more advanced. So we'll run through them both, take whichever option is best for you, always listen to your body. It might be, especially if you're working on building strength in the arms, that you just stick with the first version today and that's perfectly fine. So we'll start in our fours position and we'll just start by warming up the spine. So just checking your shoulders are stacked over your wrists, hips over the knees. We'll start with a few cat-cows. On the inhale, drop the belly down, lift the gaze, pull the shoulder blades together. And then exhale, round through the spine, chin to chest and pull that navel in. Inhale to make your way back up. Exhale, navel to spine, chin to chest, round through that spine. Inhale to make your way back up. Exhale, chin to chest, round through the spine. And inhale to come back to a neutral table. And I will just take a few circles or any movements that you feel good for you. So maybe drawing the hips towards one ankle, draw over to the opposite, and then coming up the opposite side, bringing the weight over the wrist. So drawing these really big circles. If that doesn't feel good for you, then you can make these circles smaller. Maybe just half circles is also fine. And then switching direction. And then when you're ready, just make your way back into this neutral tabletop. So we'll move straight into a vinyasa and we'll start with the kind of cool down version of the warm-up version of the vinyasa. So again, just checking your shoulders are stacked over your wrists and your hips are roughly over your knees. So we'll start in this position and then we'll start to bring the weight forward. We want to keep the elbows in towards the ribs as we move into this first pose. And we'll start to bring the chin and the chest down towards the floor, keeping the hips nice and high. And then straighten the legs out, coming flat onto the floor, forehead can come down to the floor as well. And then just move your hands so they're about in line with your shoulders. Push into the pinky toes, keep the hips down. And on the inhale, we'll just reach the chest forward, coming up for a baby cobra position. So this is our baby cobra position. You should be able to lift the hands off the floor here, drawing those shoulder blades together, keeping space in the neck. And then exhale to come back down. Tuck in the toes, push through the hands, we'll make our way back up to our all fours position. And then from here, making sure that the shoulders are still in line with the wrist. We really want to push through the hands, so really start to grip the floor, tuck the toes, lift the knees, and then send the hips up and back for a downwards dog. You can have a bend in the knees if you like, coming up onto the balls of the feet. You might like to widen the stance a little bit. While we're here, we just want to make sure we're really pushing through the whole hand, broadening through the shoulders, keeping that back nice and straight, with it push up through the hips. This is a really nice stretch through the back. So that's our first version of a vinyasa, and we'll take that on again. So dropping the knees down, make your way back to your all fours position. And then start to bring the weight over the wrist, bring the weight forward, keep the elbows in, bending at the elbows, bring the chin down to the floor, keeping the hips raised. Then straightening the legs, bringing the hands so they're in line with the shoulders, pinky toes pushing down, lifting up for a baby cobra. And then exhale back down to the floor, tucking the toes, pushing up into our all fours position. And then we'll continue to push up into a downwards dog. So keeping the hands grounded on the floor, push through the hands, lift the hips up and back for downwards dog. Holding it here. Check in our alignment, make sure we're pushing into the whole hands. Now sometimes in this point in the downwards dog, during a vinyasa class, we'll often hold this for about 5 breaths. But if you are not quite new to, or you are quite new to vinyasa, then you often have the option to come down to a child's pose, which is just dropping the knees down, sending the hips back, keeping the arms long if you like, and bringing the forehead down towards the floor. So this is our child's pose, and you can take it with the knees out to about mat distance apart as well. That feels better for some people. And you also have the option to keep the arms down by the hips, just bring the forehead down. So there's a couple of options there for you that you can take during your vinyasa. So we'll take that vinyasa one more time. So coming back into our tabletop position. Start to bring the weight forward over the hands, bending at the elbows, bring the chin and the chest down to the floor. And then straightening the legs out. Come onto the tops of the feet, pushing down in the pinky toes. Hands can come in line with shoulders. And then on the inhale, we can come up for our baby cobra. Or if you like, and it feels okay for the back and you feel warm enough, you can start to push into the hands and come up for a cobra pose. If you feel any pain in your lower back, then come back down to the baby cobra version. And then come back down when you're ready. Tuck in the toes, push into the hands, make your way up to an all fours position. And then we'll move straight into our downwards dog by pushing into the whole hand, tucking the toes, lifting the hips up and back for a downwards dog. Now we'll hold it here for a few rounds of breath. Feel free to come into that child's pose I showed you earlier if you like. So next we'll take the more advanced version of a vinyasa. If you like, you can stick with the first version of the vinyasa. Just see what feels good for you. This one does involve quite a lot of upper body strength, so just work within your limitations, maybe work up to the more advanced version. So from our downwards dog, we'll bring the weight forward and come into a high plank position. We want to keep the hips nice and low, really push through the upper back, so you should start to see the upper back rounding, push through the balls of the feet. And then start to bring the weight forward, so come onto the tops of the toes. Your weight should be over the wrists now, and you want to keep the elbows in towards the body. If you notice your elbows coming out at all, then stick with the first version of this, because we're moving into a Chaturanga, and this does involve quite a lot of upper body strength. So keeping the elbows in towards the body, we'll start to bend forward, keeping the elbows stacked over the wrists, bring the body down towards the floor. And we'll just hover here. And then we'll bring the body forward, pushing through the arms, coming onto the tops of the feet. Draw the shoulder blades together, gaze can be up for upwards facing dog. And from here, start to push through the hips. Come onto the feet, moving into our downwards dog. And again, we'll hold it here for a few rounds of breath. Maybe coming into that child's pose if you like. So we'll run through the full version of a vinyasa again. Take in the earlier version if you prefer. And we'll take it a little bit quicker this time. Just be mindful when moving into the Chaturanga that your elbows and wrists are in line and the weight's coming forwards, just to make sure you're protecting the wrist, protecting the upper body. So when we're ready, we'll bring the weight forward, come into our high plank position, checking our alignment, checking our hips, rounding through the upper back. And then bring the weight forward, come onto the toes, start to bend at the elbows, keep them in towards the chest, come down. And then inhale up, upwards facing dog. And pushing it through the hips, come back to downwards dog. And taking a few deep breaths here. Inhale through the nose. Exhale, sigh out the mouth. Now dropping down to the knees, we'll finish with a child's pose. So if you like, bringing the knees out to mat distance apart, bringing the hips back, arms coming out nice and long, forehead to the floor. So that brings us to the end of our mini What is a Vinyasa class. You can do that as many times as you want. It's a really great way to build upper body strength. And now if you ever do a yoga class and you hear a teacher say, take your Vinyasa, you know what they're talking about. So I hope that really helps a lot. So just coming back up to a seated position. And I thank you for practicing with me today.